Music, it makes moments for all of us, right? The moment you first heard that song, the moment you saw them live, the moment you just knew. Music makes moments, but it's also made from moments. Moment You Made It is a show that seeks to find those moments for those artists, creators, and business professionals alike who make music into the moments that you remember. Moment You Made It is a podcast hosted by three creatives from the live music capital of the world. Director of the Texas Music Office, Brendan Anthony, singer-songwriter Fred Andrews, and Executive Director of the Austin Music Movement, Nick Shuley. Moment You Made It seeks to document the most compelling conversations with people that make those musical moments.
This is the Moment You Made It podcast. We've got myself, Fred Andrews.
Get it together, man.
I'm trying so hard.
You're doing great, man. You did yourself.
I did the main part, the good part. Fred, I'm Fred, in case you're wondering who this voice is.
Hi, Fred. I'm Brendan. This is Nick. Nick, thanks so much for helping us get this whole thing recorded, edited, saved, out to the people. It would not happen without you. And, I want you to know that Fred and I appreciate that and tolerate you. And we're glad to bring you along as a third seat on our rocket ship to the moon that we know this podcast, Moment You Made It's going to be. So thanks for hanging in there, buddy. You're really making a lot of people happy. All 8 of them.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second, because I think we get a lot of time to ask our guests, about the moment they made it. And maybe it's time that I talk about the moment I made it. And that was the second we went live on the first episode of, according to Fred, The Moment You Met It, but also known as The Moment You Made It. And I mean, just, man, the way my life has changed and just going out in public, even with the mask on, it's like crazy. People don't even know what I, look like with that, with the mask, without a mask, but I'm still like, it's been incredible. So I just want to thank you guys for letting me, be a part of it, letting me do all the work, letting me.
Well, I mean, on behalf of Fred, I'll speak for Fred. You deserve that, Nick, and you deserve all of this and the recognition that comes with it.
Yeah, no, it's very much appreciated.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun getting together to do these things and getting them out, and we're getting some folks listening to them and getting some great feedback, and that's been a lot of fun. We're kind of figuring out a little bit better how to, get these things packaged up and get them put out. And that's been a lot of fun. That was the whole idea behind this in the first place. Let's get together and talk to each other and talk to friends we know in the biz about what they do and what's important to them. And it's been fun. It really has been for me. This week we sat down with an old friend of ours. Fred's known him a lot longer, but Fred's known a lot of people longer than other people on this podcast. And
I'm older.
Right. And it was really nice of this guy to join us today. He's a really busy, in-demand songwriter. He's a really busy, in-demand performer during normal times. Not to fudge numbers. If he wasn't on the road 175 to 150, 200 dates a year, I'd be really surprised. He's a busy singer, or a busy band, and it was really great of him to join us. One of the things that impresses me about this guy that we can introduce here in a minute is what he does for other people in this business too. And we get into that a lot on this cast as we talk to him. It's a tough enough place to make it when you're trying to build your own brand and keep your own band on the road and keep everybody happy. And if along the way you can be entrepreneurial and get contracts for other people that have taken them to huge heights. We saw another one of those happen in the last couple of weeks with Parker McCollum getting his #1, due in large part to the efforts of this guy we're going to talk to. It says a lot about people like Randy Rogers that he can find time and ways to use the relationships he's built and nurtured over those years to help other people out and keep a really cool business coming out of Texas.
I talking to Randy, it reminded me something that the reason why I feel like they're so successful is the Randy Rogers band. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Most of the guys that I know, it's the lead singer, and then they hire some, a couple of their buddies, and then they end up changing those guys out, and they end up having like a really hired gun kind of band. It's not a band. Even though it's Randy Rogers' band, they're all for one for all. They split all the, the hard times and the good times. So if they're, even with merchandise.
And man, that's tough, because you're talking about 20 plus years of touring, writing, recording, merchandise, management, everything else that they split. Yeah. But they have to devote their time to. And if you look around, and this is not an exaggeration, if you look around at the scene that Randy came out of, and you look at the groups of people that have been together making music, they're really the only one that is stuck together as a nucleus, not even as a nucleus, but as a full band from Jump Street, and that's a huge accomplishment.
Randy Rogers Band and Eli Young actually are that way also. Those 4 core guys. The
Yeah,
only
good point.
people,
Good point.
only guys I know in the scene, even in country music. I mean, I don't know how many. I mean,
I think
I'm sure
regardless of the
there's
scene,
several more.
I think regardless of the scene, it's just exceptional, and
Yeah.
it deserves to be pointed out. And he does a good job of being humble about their level of success, and he does a great job, deflecting the light onto all the other guys that make it possible. But
Yeah.
I think a great deal needs to be made of how selfless that is, sure, how much trust and reliance he puts in the other people he works with, and then what he's willing to do for other people in the scene. It was great to talk to him. I had a great time chatting with him, catching up. We've got a lot of old school stories. We've all known each other for a long time, came up in the scene together, and there's some funny things that come out. But it was great to talk to Randy Rogers, and really hope everybody enjoys it.
You look great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no doubt. I just did a really weird Fox 4 Good Day TV deal, and you can't see who you're talking to, and you have to call them on the phone. So you're just cued by the control room, and then all of a sudden all you can see is yourself on the screen, and you're talking to this lady.
The live?
It's live.
Yeah, that's
Ooh.
weird.
And my fucking dog starts barking like a maniac outside the damn.
Well, we'll probably have a couple kids jump in on somewhere.
Yeah, I thought maybe I'd accidentally didn't shut the door to my studio, and the dog was just gonna right in here on me.
We
I was
talked
kind of
to
hoping that happened.
we talked to Corey yesterday for a minute. It was like, I mean, God, I love Corey, and like everything he's got going on is a daycare nightmare madness over there. It was crazy. It's fun though. It's cool to see.
It.
It's cool to see all the stuff he's got going on.
Just me and Big Ben Dorsey over here.
Oh man,
Oh,
anniversary a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Look at this,
The
you got
Ben.
a picture. You carry that in your wallet?
Signed it for me. No, it's right here by my little desk, though.
Gotcha.
You and Wade were really close with Ben.
We were.
He was a good dude.
He just lived down the street from me for the last, 3 or 4 years of his life. So.
Ben came on the road with Pat for a while, and it was insane. He was so much fun, and the stories were just crazy. Like, he told us one about being on an aircraft carrier, was that right? Is he on a naval ship, and it was hit, and he still had shrapnel in his leg from the attack or something like that?
Yeah, he was in the South Pacific. Yeah, that's.
Well, let's who is Ben Dorsey? Let's I mean, because the people that are listening have no idea.
He's
Yeah,
the most, famous roadie ever.
Yeah.
Most famous roadie ever. Was on the road first with John Wayne, I believe. And
This
then,
is valet or something,
yeah,
right? Like,
he was. And he used to drive John from the movie set in LA to Tijuana
Oh,
to have fun, and then
That's a
back to
good
work
time.
the next day. And there's a really great story about Ben that he started working in the music industry and was driving around Johnny Cash. And Johnny Cash told Ben that he didn't believe him that he knew John Wayne, and so Ben just pulled up to John Wayne's house and hit the button. And they're like, "Who is it?" He's like, "It's Levy. Let me in."
and I mean, he just crashed on your bus for months, right?
Oh, months, more months. Yeah, he lived in the back lounge. It was like, some artists have star coaches where they have their back lounge to themselves with a shower and a bed and a TV and a place that they can get away. Now, Ben took over our back lounge. It was like his lair.
Was he smoking back there too?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
his
That's
pipe
awesome.
and his everything else.
Yeah, no
Oh,
kidding.
Man, he was on the road with us once, and Pat looked over, and Lovey had a full-on guitar amp in a case, and Pat was like, "You gotta tell Ben to put that down. Like, I love him, I love having him around, but he cannot have a major injury or a heart attack on our tour. I don't know what we would do." So eventually, we were in Minnesota, and we played the Fine Line up there. Do you remember that place, that small club up in Minnesota? And Ben was finally kind of tired, and Pat was like, "Oh, okay, I'll fly you home." And Ben said, "Well, I just bought all this pot. I don't know what to do with it." And Pat said, "Well, look, with all due respect, I don't really know what to do with it either here." So Ben was like, "It's okay, I'll take it home." And he tucked it all in his pants and flew through the airport with it. I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. He
Who's
just was
gonna
like,
stop him?
I got it. He just tucked it in the front of his pants right outside the airport and walked straight through, and they didn't mess with him.
Yeah, we could really do a whole entire podcast on Ben stories and all the memories through the years. Big Ben Dorsey, and
That's a great idea.
We Wade and I put that song on our record, Hold My Beer Volume 2, that just came out during the pandemic. Way to go.
Nice.
Greatest idea ever to put a record out during the pandemic. But we got a song that Waylon wrote for Ben, and we were able to use Waylon's voice. And if you haven't heard it, it's really interesting and cool. The band just comes right in with Waylon's work tape of this song that he wrote for Ben. It's really neat.
Oh, that's killer. I got to take a
Yeah,
listen to it.
that. Me too.
Well, I could do a whole thing on Ben. Maybe we will one day. I think that's fun. But we have you here. I want to run through some stuff with you.
Well, we
You've been
have
nice
you.
enough to,
Yeah.
to jump on.
Well, just this guitar right here, you can see in the back.
Yeah.
So after Ben passed, we went into his home, and he had sticky fingers. He didn't steal. He just he ended up with a lot of. He ended up with a lot of other people's shit, and we pulled this guitar out of the closet, literally the closet. It's signed by Haggard, Christopherson, and Willie. It's just
Jeez.
it was just sitting there.
Ben just gave things a new home. He didn't never steal anything. He just gave things a better home.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh shit.
Well, man, we had a really fun time in New York, and it was strange because it was right. It was at the beginning of the year, so it was right before pandemic hit. So we played a big show. Pat played, you played, Josh Abbott played before, and I just remember it being, I don't know, it was just one of the more fun shows, one of the more fun weekends. I mean, little did we all know kind of what was coming down the pike, but we spent a really
show too, dude. That was the last one I saw before all this. I haven't seen anything since.
That's right, and Fred was up there too.
I was there.
I think it was February 28th at Terminal 5, and a huge show. Lots of people having a great time, and then, Randy and I found each other out bumping around the next day, going to some really fun spots and spending a really fun day together. And was, got to do this more, often, got to do more shows, more hangs, that kind of thing. And it was just, it was such a strange thing to come back right into what we've come back into. But, one thing I was struck by, because it's always a really fun atmosphere when those groups are together. You and Pat are good buddies, and of course, all the guys in the band, great buddies for years. I've been friends with, Brady, because he and I played the same thing, and we've been buddies for years since kind of the start of the thing 20 years ago, 18, 20 years ago, however long ago it was. But, one thing that always strikes me when I spend time around you and the guys is, how much of a family that feels like. And, I think maybe some people have an idea about how y'all do things, but I've always been impressed by the way you've run that group, and you guys have run that group together as kind of a family. Can you talk a little bit about why y'all made that decision and how that came about?
Sure. It's 20 years, October 3rd, by the way. 20 years of the Randy Rogers Band.
Nice.
My first ever gig at Cheatham Street Warehouse. That seems like 100 years ago, after being on the road and playing so many shows together. Really, we all had nothing to lose. I was in another band playing guitar, singing harmony when I decided to start writing songs, and I found myself at open mic night at Cheatham Street. Kent Finley at the time encouraged me to start a band. And so I started looking for guys that were already kind of in the scene and had jobs. I didn't want to steal anybody away, but I knew that I needed people that knew more than I knew. And so at that time, we all had nothing. We were all single. We were all either finishing college or gonna quit college to play music, one or the other. I finished, but there was a night that I used to live in this house. It was on stilts in San Marcos, and there was a keg of beer pretty much 24/7, and we played music every night, and we had jam sessions every night. And in that house, I invited the band over because some of them were working delivering pizzas, some of them were still playing other side gigs and missing some of the gigs that I would book. And I got a box of Franzia wine, and I got everyone drunk. And then I drew a proverbial line in the sand in my living room and said, look, if you guys join up right now with me, then we'll treat this as a band, a 5-piece band, and we'll share everything like Willie Nelson. And even though we just have an '88 Suburban out there, one day it's going to be a tour bus, and one day we're going to sign a record deal, and one day we're going to be on TV and be on the radio. And everybody drank the Kool-Aid, which was cheap wine, but that's when it started. And I think we all grew. I think the key to our success is we all grew up together from that point on. We all got better at our instruments. We all got better. We started focusing on becoming the best version of ourselves musically, and we all had a common goal. It's like being on a team. It's the only way you can describe it is like being on a basketball team and trying to win the championship. And that's the way we approached the music industry. We approached it as a business, and we approached it as we're stronger in numbers. And that's the beginning of it. And 20 years later, the same 5 guys are in the band, and we all have children now and marriages, and unfortunately a couple divorces and lots of different things and ups and downs and roller coaster rides we've been on together. But the truth is we still get on stage and we enjoy it, and being in a band together with somebody that long, you also know every idiosyncrasy that each other has. And so if somebody makes a mistake, we don't turn around and look at each other anymore. We kind of already knew that mistake was coming. It's not hard now for us to pick up where we left off. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we do have out of this pandemic, is we have been doing it so long that when we get on stage together, we have known each other for so long. We are not necessarily best friends, but we're brothers. And so it works out for us, and it has for so long, because I think we respect each other, respect the fact that we're different, and we have different opinions about certain things, and we're tolerant. And I think that's just describing a marriage, I think. But it is a big, huge marriage between all of us.
That's been fun to watch. I mean, because in this scene, it's kind of like an indie rock scene in a way. You don't immediately sign as a band, and then you got the Easy Street record deal that comes with it, and you're off and running single to single. This is a hard-working, independent, life on the road scene, and there are always more shows to play. And sometimes, you start out and you're really hungry and play everything, and then you get to be a little bit more choosy over the years, and if you're really lucky, you get to really dictate your own schedule. But, I know for years, having watched y'all come up, in parallel to what we were doing on the road, and seeing y'all quite a bit, you guys were out there working as harder than anybody, and that can really take a toll. I mean, what was the idea when you guys were starting out? What was the idea about what was going to get you there, to that tour bus, to the to the TV and the deal? What was it? Was it watching other people who were doing it, or did you have another plan in mind, or how'd that work?
I think it's songs. I think Kent Finley ingrained it in me to write every week and to come to songwriter night and play the song that I wrote that week, even if I screwed it up. And even if the song was bad, write another one. To finish the song, even though you thought it was bad. I think any young artist out there listening to this needs to really focus on the craft of songwriting. And if you're not the best songwriter, that's fine too. Go find great songs to cut. I mean, that's the foundation. That's the building block. There's a saying in the music industry that it only takes one song. And that may be true for some people, and in certain ways that you can approach the business. But really, if you have the music and you have the relatable song that somebody can fall in love with, we knew that if we could find those songs or write those songs, that our hard work and dedication and playing Huntsville on Tuesday, or San Marcos on Tuesday, Huntsville on Wednesday, College Station on Thursday, drive all the way to Lubbock on Friday, all the way back to Dallas on Saturday, in those days, we knew that would pay off. We just had to connect. We had to get in front of the audience. We had to connect with those particular songs. And I think that, when I was writing in my 2002, 2001, 2003, is so different from the writing that happens now, and it evolved, and that goes back to all of us doing our part to get better. I met people along the way like Radney Foster, who literally changed my life, with teaching me how to write a catchy melody and teaching me how to write a song that is commercial. And so, the effort and the hard work that we all put into it, I think we knew would pay off at some point.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true, man. You could see your hard work paying off along the way. Every time we'd run into you, your crowd had gotten bigger. I think it's been really great to watch. Something you said earlier kind of jogged my memory. I think we were playing at a racetrack somewhere, and Pat had played one stage, and we went down to see another band play. And was the guy's name Chris Chitsey? Is that?
Oh, you just ruined it for me. That was my number one. That's what I was going to talk about.
That was your trump card pullout. I'm sorry, Fred.
Well, yeah. So let's back up a little bit. So before I decided to, start and embark on the Randy Rogers Band, I was in San Marcos and I was playing frat parties and I was hanging out with Fred and I was playing on the steps of the dorm and just trying to meet as many people as I could that played music. And I met this guy who was playing guitar for Chris Chitsey, and they invited me out to a rehearsal so Chris wasn't the best rhythm guitar player, wasn't the best guitar player, and they needed somebody to sing harmony. And so I could sing harmony, I could play rhythm guitar, and so I got this gig, and it was basically a weekend warrior gig where I would go to school Monday through Thursday, usually skip Thursday class, and then go on the road and play guitar and sing harmony. And we got to do some fun shows. We got to open up for Tracy Bird. I was actually sharing the story with Tracy Bird the other day. There's a picture of me and Tracy when I'm like 19 playing golf in Phoenix together, And my first gig was in a Silver Eagle tour bus, I mean, not a lot of musicians can say that. So
that was a hard partying band for what they did, right?
Yeah, well, I partied. But, I learned, so I was kind of the grunt of that band, so I would have to roll the snake at the end of the night, and I would have to pack the trailer, and they kind of bossed me around. And looking back, some of the guys in the band were older, and I think they were hazing me, but they were hazing me because they liked me, and they wanted me to learn. And so at some point, I was dating this girl, and she broke my heart, and then I wrote this song called Lost and Found while in Chitsey's band. And so then I played on the bus for them, and they were like, man, you should do it. Like, whenever they take a break, you should go and do the song. So I started playing the song Lost and Found at these shows, and people kind of gravitated towards that song, and then they started asking for me to play it more often. And I don't know if that pissed off Chitsey and his, group, but
yep.
At some point I remember they kicked me out on the side of the highway. And thus began my journey with Eddie Foster, who was in that band with me, steel guitar player, and we started the Randy Rogers Band together, and we started looking for players at that point. So is
that Copano Bay and
Tommy
yes. Jackson. Those are some great songs.
Yeah, so I do owe a lot to Chitsey and that organization in a way, because they got me on stage, it got my feet wet. I learned a lot about sound equipment and singing harmony. We didn't have in-ears back then, but I learned a lot about the road and what happens on the road.
That was one of my biggest questions for you, is like, who was the most influential person that helped you in your career? And I was, put it in order. I said Chris Chitsey, Kent Finley, and Radney Foster, which would be the most influential, so.
Well, I think Kent gave me my first stage to play on. So, that's hands down. Kent Finley, without Kent Finley, there wouldn't be Randy Rogers Band. And I truly believe that. I've said it before, but just looking back on how I ended up in San Marcos anyway, and how I found different venues in San Marcos that didn't really fit me and what I wanted to become. But then I met Kent and that stage there at Cheatham Street, and his encouragement and his love of music and his love of young people that played music.
Kindness.
So wonderful. And yeah, it has to be him. And then second would be Radney, because when I met Radney, that was kind of my introduction into what Ken had already told me about, which was the publishing world, getting a publishing deal, going to Nashville, signing a major record deal, making a really great sonically sounding album with a collection of songs that were all good, which I think Roller Coaster, really, that record changed everything, changed the game for us. And Radney produced that for us in Austin.
So you didn't say Chris. So Chris would be the third?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris would be the third. And I've actually reached out to Chris and checked on him. He's fine.
Well, you've had a lot of people in that kind of vein of folks you've worked with or who you've learned from or who believed in you. I look at Radney, of course. I mean, I was excited for you when the Radney process started. The guys I was talking to were really excited that Radney was going to come in and start working with you because from a production standpoint, from a songwriting standpoint, I mean, what a great guy to learn from. But that's and Kent Finley, of course. I think there's a huge debt that a lot of us owe Kent. If we know it or not, because of the kind of music and the environment he's fostered. The idea that the song comes first, and I'll give you a place to play, even though people don't know you. He was really great to so many people that way. But your career, as I've observed it, has been a long list of folks like that who've gotten to know you, gotten to believe in you and what you've done, and you've taken the time out, to learn from them and listen to them, and you've probably got a lot more in-depth stories. But I remember talking with you once in Nashville, and you'd been working with Luke Lewis and that group who'd sort of seen what you were doing and seen what you were about, and then that leads up to eventually working with Dave Cobb. I mean, you've always found really interesting guys to sort of take your career, or Jay Joyce even, to take your career and your sound in a way that frankly a lot of artists might not have been as trusting of themselves to go and work with. What was working with a guy like Jay Joyce like for you when you were making one kind of sound, and obviously Jay's got a much different sounding catalog. What was that move even like?
Well, I will say, and all the producers I've ever worked with, they've always been a little scared, to be honest, to fuck up, what we have created, right? So, like Jay, for example, he was a fan, he knew us, and he didn't want to change us or make us go down any path that we were not comfortable with. If you listen to that album Fuzzy, which is like one of my all-time favorite tracks of our band and one of the most streamed songs of our band, should have been a big hit at radio. But
you played it for me on the bus at Chili Fest one day, and you were like, come here, you got to come listen to this. What do you think? I don't even know what to think about this, but I love it. What do you think? And I was blown away by the thing.
It's a departure, though, from your music, from what you've been writing.
Yeah, so Jay was able to pull that off without taking us down some weird rabbit hole that wasn't us, And so each producer that we work with, even Buddy Cannon, they knew, Paul Worley knew, Burning the Day, not to take us into some pop. I mean, he was doing the Dixie Chicks, Lady A, and he was doing some pretty slick stuff. And he knew that we wouldn't go down that path, and he knew better than to change anything about us because it would negatively affect our fan base and negatively affect our touring, which is basically how we all make money, is touring. And so I think the loyalty and the dedication that we have showed to the music and the music that we want to be associated with as the band, even though jumping from producer to producer to producer, we've managed to have this cohesive sound because we know who we are. And also, 5 of us are in there on every album playing.
Right.
So it can't change too much.
You're not bringing in hired guns. The band's playing on all the records.
And that's
on the records.
That's such a huge differentiator. And I'm really not trying to, ascribe these things to anyone else. I've lived through a couple where, the idea is to take the business to the next level. And so you start to work with a bigger producer based elsewhere, and they've got their ideas about what's going to make this thing sound, better to a mass audience. But along the way, if you're not really careful and you're not very, very dialed into what you are, what your brand is to your fans, that sound can change, that personnel on the records can change in such a way that completely changes an audience's perception of who you are, who the band is at that point, and that can really cause problems. I mean, it can really, like you said, cause problems with the touring and the reception for the record. I think it's great that you've and the guys have found a way to stay on the records, to make the records that sound good while working with some great new minds. I've just always thought it was a real high wire act that you've sort of run for a long time, working with some folks who very easily could have said, well, this is the sound I make, and I hope you like the record. But I think it's a real high wire act. I've always respected it.
I'd like to go back to something you said too about Luke Lewis. So for people who don't know, Luke Lewis was the president of Universal Music Group in Nashville. He's the guy that signed the band, and after seeing us play several shows in Dallas with Pat Green around the time Wave on Wave was just, off the charts. And so Luke, I was on that label for 4 albums, and through the years got to know Luke very well until his departure from Universal. And he would tell me at the Grammy parties or at the CMA parties or whatever that he was so proud of me for not ever wavering, and he never expected me to waver. And it wasn't my job to go out and have a #1 hit and sell 10 million records for him. That I would always have a home there as long as he was there, because we made genuine music. And I had the green light to make the music that I wanted to make. Now, that being said, would a #1 hit would have helped us? Well, it may have.
Maybe.
Would it push the needle that year? The next year? What if we did it again? I look back and think about what ifs. I had the opportunity to cut. I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier. Luke Bryan #1. Yeah. I had the opportunity to cut a couple Keith Urban #1s. I had 1 or 2 Blake Shelton's #1s on hold. Alan Jackson's song that was on hold that went #1. And just looking back, right? I mean, the decisions I made I have to live with them in the long run. But I don't think I'd change anything. I think we always wanted it to be about the family. We always wanted it to be about the music that we wanted to create, being a truest to country music. And then all of a sudden, also, guys, like what happened to me was, we got signed and this thing was happening with the Dixie Chick and Pat and everything coming out of Texas being like the biggest shit ever. And all of a sudden, kaboom, bro country, right? So then all of a sudden, everyone from Georgia, everyone from Alabama, everything from the Southeast, and we were touring the Southeast at the time, but everything that was bubbling up there in all the colleges and universities in the Southeast got signed in Nashville. And then it was like game over.
And if you chased the #1 on a format that immediately ended that day, you would have been in a pretty difficult spot, because you would have sacrificed some of that authentic fan base who came to see you because you cut the songs you wanted to cut, and the brand, you remain the brand and the band you wanted to be. Where would that have gone? I always say, and this is not a knock on Nashville, I genuinely enjoy doing business there and working there, and all the people I've met. It's just a tremendous place to live and work. But they tend to meet their fans one single at a time through the radio, and we tend to meet our fans in Texas, having built independent, authentic fan bases, one fan at a time, one college campus at a time, one bar at a time, one Cheatham Street at a time, and we build that into something that, if you give away to get the #1, or you slightly give away to get a #1, when that format changes, where does that leave a long-term, Randy Rogers? Again, it's a high wire act. I think you've navigated it incredibly well.
Well, thank you. I mean, like, I would do a few things different, right? And I wish that at some point, we would have had recognition at mainstream country radio, but it wasn't in the cards. And things happen for a reason. I still got a wonderful career. I get to play music for a living, and my time at Universal, at Mercury Records, at MCA Records, I wouldn't trade those days for anything. I mean, I got to play Red Rocks in Denver because we got airplay in Denver, right? I get to play Atlanta because we got airplay in Atlanta because of the label. Chicago, huge festivals, Country Thunder festivals out in Arizona and other places. Stagecoach Festival. I mean, there's so many things that I got to do. Play David Letterman, play Leno twice, play Conan twice, and it was all because of the push that I was getting from Universal, the push that I was getting through my singles. Even though they weren't number ones, they were still getting played in several major markets in the country. I get to tour the entire country now because of those singles and because of those albums I made there at Universal. So I have just absolutely the utmost respect for Luke Lewis and for everybody that worked, all the team members that worked on those albums while I was there. That is a true reason that we do have such a solid fan base throughout the country.
Yeah, meeting and working with the right executive, for lack of a better word, at a label like that. I mean, Luke Lewis is a 1 in a million type guy. I mean, they all are in some way, shape, or form. They're all incredibly successful, but one that can truly understand what a brand's true motivation is. That's like finding a needle in a haystack. That's fantastic. And I'll attest. I mean, I've been to some of those shows as an observer, and to come hang and to see y'all play at Red Rocks. I mean, anytime you see a friend go play in front of that kind of crowd that is there to see them at a place like that, I mean, it's so special. And the fact that, you know, while sometimes the label Texas band is thrown around some I think seeing that respect and that that response in a place like that sums it all up. I mean, you and the guys are a group that have worked really hard to achieve that, and to see that, it's just entirely fascinating. Fred spent a lot of time kind of in the early days, and y'all spent time, around kind of the same scenes. And I know Fred's got some more songwriting type questions for you. So Fred, you want to jump in on some of that? I don't want to take up all the time on the history lesson side of it.
Yeah, I'd love to. We've been talking about songs. I think that's kind of the common theme, Randy, is your songwriting and what you believe is the base, the building blocks of music in your career is songwriting. So I want to go back, way back. Your voice, I kind of describe it as gravel and honey. It's not this, it's got this thing, When did your voice change? Like, did you come out of the womb like with this gravelly honey voice, or when did that happen?
Well, yeah. So I was singing in church when I was a kid, and I don't recall it being as gravelly. I mean, this is after puberty, of course. It's not as gravelly as it is today, right? I think a combination of like serious allergies and maybe chain smoking until I was 30 probably didn't help.
Right.
And also finding a sound too, right? So I got early comparisons to Steve Earle. I got, anybody with a gravelly voice, people would say, well, Randy's sounding like that. I mean, there were times when I just wanted to sound like Willie Braun, I just loved Reckless Kelly so much and still do, So at some point in my early 20s, as we developed our sound as a band, I think my voice gravitated towards this gravelly, gruffy thing. In fact, my wife and I were talking about one of our children, who will remain nameless, and the fact that she's basically tone deaf, and saying, well, she's probably not going to be a singer, and Chelsea says, well, you couldn't sing when you were young. And I said, no, I've always had the voice of an angel. And she just lost it. And she goes, the voice of an angel? No, you sound like a grizzly bear. And so, which is, I guess it's worked for me in a sense of when you hear a song, it's a distinctive enough voice that you can identify who the band is. And I think that's helped quite a bit.
But you talk like it too. I mean, this isn't something you're putting on. And Brendan and I had a long conversation. Well, I don't know if it was long. It was a conversation. Brendan got a compliment when he went up and sang a song with Jack Ingram, and Ingram goes, "You sound like you talk." Right? Was that similar?
Yeah. Jack goes, "Man, you know what? You sing just like you talk." And I walked off stage, and it was one of those Jack compliments where I was like, wait a minute, and I thought about it for 2 days, kind of thing.
2 days. Yeah, 2 days.
Okay, so this is actually the truth, okay, and this may be a little bit too much in depth for this podcast, but
Not at all.
when Wade Bowen was having issues with his vocal cords, of course, I was having sympathy vocal cord problems, right? Like my dearest friend. It's like when the pregnant girl goes, "Oh, this hurts," and you're like, "Oh, you know what? I kind of hurt too." Yeah. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. But so I went to see his doctor. So I was having some problems where I was losing my voice, and it's only happened to me like once or twice in 20 years. But it was happening for some reason last March, I guess, year before, whenever Wade was having his issues. So I went to see this doctor, right? And so, to spare everyone the details, they basically scope you and they go down and they look at your vocal cords. They can do it through your nose or through your mouth, whatever. So my vocal cords actually, when you sing, your vocal cords are actually supposed to completely touch, right?
Right.
Just like this.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, mine don't close all the way. Okay. And so that allows air to escape. And that is actually what causes this. And so it could be a birth defect, and it likely is a birth defect, or it could just be over time and use or an illness that I had or something caused this, right? And I know that sounds absolutely insane, but I'm telling you, he's like the leading doctor. He studied at Vanderbilt. He explained it to me, and he said that through the years and through working on so many people's vocal cords and throats and giving voice lessons and lessons on how to speak, not only sing, the people with the weird voices have this thing, and it's
Tom Waits.
It's just there, and no one really knows why. Very interesting. And he also said, which gave me a lot of hope for my career, he said, some of the most successful people that he's seen in the industry, that's it. I mean, you think John Prine, you think Tom Waits, you think these voices that aren't necessarily normal. I don't know. I'm going with vocal cord issue.
Randy, I don't know if anybody knows this about Randy, but he is a little bit of a hypochondriac. I remember the first time that you went and got your cords looked at. This must be years and years ago. This is right after about 6 months where you thought you might have AIDS,
right.
and then you had some other illness and cancer, and then he's like, "Oh, I think I'm definitely have nodes on my vocal cords, and I'm never be able to sing again. What do you think, Fred? I'm really nervous about this." And then you went and got scoped, and you showed me the I don't know if it was an X-ray or a picture, but they said they looked fine and you were good. But
so I am a bit of a hypochondriac, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, unless it consumes your everyday life and you're constantly WebMD.
Yeah.
But I've preached that to other young artists that I've worked with, and Parker McCollum is a great example of this. Always, I kind of sound like the old man now, but just hydrating, warming up before you get out there to sing. And if you do have an issue, don't wait. Go get it checked out. I think through the years, I think Jason Boland, Wade, their issues kind of stand out because they had to take some time off. So, I think if you're listening to this and you're a young artist, you need to take care of that and treat that as your instrument. And if you do have a problem, don't be afraid to go to an ENT and to a doctor. It's not that big a deal, really. But nowadays, 42 years old, I think I have to warm up and drink enough water on the road. So
early you practice what you preach early on. Pack of smokes and a shot of whiskey, and then you start singing.
And Randy, I think that's a good segue, man, into like one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about. Like, I think you're talking about Parker, and I think you've done. I haven't seen it from a ton of people, especially in the scene or just in general. But you've done so much to help build and give back, like as far as like other artists, all the way to from the management and Parker and Cheatham Street and all these things. Like, I think you've done so much to help build, and I don't think that's a common thing. Does that come from somewhere? Does that come from the people who helped you, or where or talk a little bit about that if you would?
Yeah, great. So actually, Adam Carroll reached out to me yesterday and had me record this little video for him. I guess he's doing a video series where Adam plays and talks about each record that he's put out through the years. And And so this goes back all the way to those Cheatham Street days. And I was an intern at a publicity company called Propaganda Group, a lady named Vicky Lucero, my senior year of college. And I started a booking agency because I wanted to be involved in the industry. And I was very hungry at that time to learn and to meet people I just wanted so bad to be in the industry. So Adam Carroll needed a booking agent. He used Vicky Lucero and Propaganda Group for publicity. And I said, well, I'll be his booking agent. I'd never booked anybody. I'd been on the road, but I'd never booked anybody. And so I started this company called Randall Wade, which is my middle name, Randall Wade Enterprises. And so I started making all these phone calls to these clubs like, yeah, this is Randall Wade, and I've got this great artist, Adam Carroll. And, oh, yeah, Friday, February 10th? Perfect. Yeah, we'll be there. Okay, the guarantees, $6,000 and versus 80% of the door. And, I learned how to be a booking agent, right? And so then I started booking Damon Bramlett and Nathan Hamilton and Walt Wilkins for a little bit. And Adam was my first, he was my first client, and I stuck with it for a long time. I started booking. What happened was I started booking the Randy Rogers Band as Randall Wade. And so I took this all the way through. I took this all the way through the infant stages of our band. In fact, like some promoters never even knew. Like I would go play the show and then say, well, yeah, I'll get Randall Wade to get back with you guys, and we'll get another date on the books. And then I would call him 2 weeks later and be like, yeah, how'd the show go? Try to change my voice.
It's the same.
Can we open for Pat Green? So I did that. And in fact, one time I revealed myself to Casey Lane, who was one of our dear friends, had booked the surf club for years and now has a House of Rock in Corpus. But I revealed myself to him, and dude, it blew his mind. He was like, I can't believe it. I've been talking to you on the phone.
It's like a Scooby-Doo. It's like a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
For 5
no
years.
Way.
I've been talking to you on the phone for 5 years. Are you kidding me? So I mean, I always kind of had it in my blood to be in the industry and the business side of the industry. And so then I met Radney, right? So when I meet Radney Foster, and he says, he had little kids at the time. He says, come up 15 years ago. Come up, you can stay at my house in Nashville. We can write in the basement. You can come and go as you please. You won't even come in the house. Then in the mornings, they would invite me up, and we would have, eggs and bacon with the little kids. And Ratty and I would go write songs. And then, he'd send me on my merry way back to the road. And then he just took me in. And so I think really what I do now with these younger artists and why I started a management company and why I continue to work with artists like William Beckman and Parker is because paying it forward to me is so much more important than anything else at this point in the stage of my career. Because like we talked about earlier, so many people, Kent and Radney and Cody Canada for that matter, and Ragweed, Pat, this Jack, so many people open doors for me. And I've also been through the processes of signing a publishing deal, a multi-album major record deal on a major label. I've had publicists, I've had promoters, I've had all these things. I've worked radio. I've done all these things that kids, I'm not necessarily classifying them as kids, but young artists maybe are scared of and don't necessarily understand. And so what I think I can bring to them is the fact that there's nothing to be afraid of. Go stay in my condo. I have a condo in Nashville that I've had for years that I write at. Go stay there for free. Hell, come up and stay with me and write. I'll take you around and introduce you to the people in town that I know, the other writers, the other publishers, the players in town that you would need to know in order to, make it in that town. And so, I feel like it's been a passion of mine. I was very, very proud of Parker and his success and how we've slowly built that. Now, some would say Parker is a rocket ship, right? And it just happened overnight. But the truth is, in March, it will be 4.5, 5 years that we've been, working Parker and working together. And so it's fun for me to see the other people's success. As fun it is for me to see Cody Johnson's success anytime Wade puts out an album and has success. It's just it's fun. It's a blessing to work with people that are talented and that need advice, and it's something I feel like I offer and I can bring to the table, basically.
Well, it's incredible, man, and it doesn't happen enough. I think in a lot of the scenes or just anywhere, and so I think it's a huge deal, and I think it's meant a lot to the music community here. And I think we call this podcast The Moment You Made It, and so we all kind of take a second, go around and talk about the moment we thought you made it, just from our recollection. And mine's like a dorky industry story because I was a Sony label rep at the time, and I was like one of the Austin reps. And so you would trade CDs with all the other reps, right? Like you would just give them a stack of CDs or we called it going shopping at their apartment or whatever. And so you'd be like, hey, come over, I got a bunch of new crap, And so I'd been out on the road with some of the acts I was working with, and it was in, the hip hop world. So I was in LA and New York, and I kind of lost from, the start of the year through the summer. I'd kind of lost touch with a lot of the Texas music that I kind of grew up on. And so I go to this guy, Drew, who was the Universal rep at the time. And he's like, dude, come to my house and shop. And so I rolled over there, and he gives me all these things. It's all rap and punk and whatever. And then he's like, you want any of this country shit I have? And I was like, yeah, dude, of course, and I always take everything. So I get in my car and I'm looking through the stack, and like, lo and behold, what the country CD gave me was The Advance of Just a Matter of Time. And it was like in the sleeve. I still have it somewhere in my garage, but I was like, holy crap. Cause I had no idea you guys had signed. I had none of that, cause I'd lost track. And I think to me, that was like, this big moment. Cause back then signing to a label, especially for Texas acts, just didn't happen. And so that, that might be like a pretty inconsequential moment, but to me, that was like, damn, Randy and his boys are making it.
That was a good time.
Great one. So yeah, I'll go next. I got two really. The first one is a way back, and then it was that house in San Marcos where we all started. Well, you guys got together and had a bunch of song pools, and you never knew who was going to be at that house playing songs late at night. I mean, it could be 2 or 3 in the morning, and you don't know who would show up and play some awesome songs. So it used to be like I'd play songs around whatever party. We'd scoot off to a front porch to play, and like, here's a new song, or here's a song I've been working on, or somebody else's song that I'm covering. But at your house, the middle of the house where there's girls drinking and guys, flirting with everybody, when a song was played, a new song or an old song or any song, and people would start to talk, the first one would be like, you'd be like, shh, hey, this is my house, shut up or leave. There's songs being sung here. And that was the first time I'm like, yeah, this guy's pouring out his soul on this song right now. Probably scared and shaking. Maybe it's his first time, or maybe it's like Aaron Watson walking in or somebody, and it was everybody had to be quiet or leave for the song. That was one defining moment that I felt like this guy's going to make it. This is awesome. This is incredible. But then the educational moment you made would be you got your band together, you got Radney Foster produce Tonight's Not the Night, and I heard it on KVET, and I was like, man, this is it. This is real radio play. This is a great song. It sounds awesome on the radio. Sky's the limit. There it is.
I felt that one too, man. Tonight's Not the Night. Ooh,
big one.
Couldn't believe it. It's on my wall over here somewhere. It's like it charted. It was in the 40s, and with like independent charting on the 40s on Billboard country charts, and that's unheard of.
It was amazing. Yeah. And to get on KVET, and I think it probably played on Case too. I don't remember here in Austin, but I mean, that's a big deal because they wouldn't play Texas music.
Yeah, Cody at the Wolf at the time. Cody was at the Wolf at the time, and the Wolf started spinning it in Dallas, and it was like kaboom.
That was a big deal when the Wolf kind of got involved in that process. I mean, I remember being really happy for my friends when they ended up on radio here, et cetera. But the power of the Wolf when Brian and Cody and those guys were there, kind of setting up the what became the format that turned into Wolf Dance and all those other things. It was just explosive for everybody. It was amazing. I've got a couple. I'll keep it short, but I remember coming up we were all kind of coming up at the same time doing similar things. And I remember, not having seen you guys for a bit and then playing a show in Nashville. And I think we were at the Tin Roof, and they'd opened up the whole back area of that spot before they'd built all the other stuff around it. And that crowd, they didn't anticipate, and I don't think I anticipated the amount of attention from the industry that was going to be kind of shown on this show. Pat was on that show, and you were on that show, and you were the talk of that show. And I remember it being such an eye-opening light bulb moment that, this thing has taken a giant step away from the Jolly Fox in Huntsville and these different places we were playing to now the magnifying glass of a really important group of folks who are major tastemakers is shining on this. And I remember just being really happy and proud for you and the guys. And the guys is where my moment is kind of compounded a little bit, because I think the moment you made it is when your band stuck together and your band made these records and your band toured and your band lived with each other and your band kept the sound and the brand together. And that's probably the thing I could come back to, 10 years ago and 10 years from now, I hope, is that you guys have decided to take that ride and that journey together and stay true to each other and true to your sound and true to your fans. It's been amazing to watch.
Well, thank you. Back to the Nashville night. Was that when you headbutted someone at the bar?
Yeah, we were headed. If you remember, we were headed to Indiana the next day to Bloomington. We had kind of a 3-day run set up, and we just played. To me, I mean, in my recollection, we'd played this kind of triumphant show in Nashville, big show, and we were all inside, and Pumpkin was behind the bar, and we were all just having a great time. And I remember it, and there was this big guy standing 2 or 3 spaces down, and in my mind he was huge, but that's how songs get written, I guess. But I was standing with a couple girls. I was talking to them and a couple friends, and I was dressed all in black. I was trying to be country cool or whatever. And the guy looked over at me and said, "Where do you get some stupid clothes like that?" And I didn't miss a beat, and I said, "Same place you got that stupid haircut, I guess." And I remember him pushing the girl standing next to me back against the wall and just walking down the bar at me. And I kind of figured, well, I got nothing to lose. And so I launched into him with my head instead of swinging with my hands and hit him right in the crown, and he fell down. And I remember Pumpkin and another guy grabbing him and pulling him out of the bar. And I said, well, that's probably the high water mark for a 5'8" guy in a bar like this, and I'll just probably leave out the back. That's exactly right. And if you recall, I ended up riding y'all's bus that night to Indiana.
Oh my
brother.
Brendan, for being 5'8", you have been in some scraps.
He's fine. He's like a magnet, man.
I broke my leg with him, and I broke my leg in Corpus. We got in a fight at some bar.
I didn't do that.
You were with me, right next to me.
Never good to be the bigger person with Brendan.
No, it doesn't help. It doesn't help, man.
Here we
and
go.
then you're with Pat when he got knocked out too, right?
3 times.
3 times.
3 times. I feel like maybe I end up being an easy target at some of those places, and I just take exception to that.
It's your quick wit.
That's right.
Is.
It gets other people in trouble.
Yeah. So Brendan flipped off the DJ in the bar in Corpus. No. Or did I do that?
You did that.
You flipped off me. You were in the DJ booth. You flipped me off, and I flipped you back.
No. Howie was in the DJ booth.
I don't remember. I was wasted.
Howie was in the DJ booth. You thought it'd be funny to flip Howie off, and the bar staff reacted to that. I was just nearby, and I would say if something else happened, but yeah.
I'm glad you remember some of that.
I do, and I don't. Maybe that's a curse too, because some of that stuff probably not great to remember. Randy, man, I can't thank you enough for coming to talk to us. I would really spend 1,000 days like we did in New York after the show, being happy and reliving great times like that. I just think it's a real blessing to get to be able to spend 20 plus years on the road with great friends. And man, I love getting to reconnect with you on it, and I hope everything's well. I'm sure you've been working hard during this time, and when things kind of reset, I look forward to jumping back on stage with y'all again, man. It's something I really look forward to.
Yeah, we can't wait. It's gonna happen soon.
You bet. Well, thanks, man. Have a great one. I know you got a call to jump to, but we love talking to you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks so
Yep,
much.
no doubt. Thanks for having us on the show. Good to see your faces.
See you
Yes, sir.
soon.
See you, Randy.
Thanks so much for tuning in to The Moment You Made It. Got a question, comment, or great idea for an upcoming guest? Let us know. Shoot us a note at hello@momentyoumadeit.com. That's hello@momentyoumadeit.com. Thanks for tuning in and see y'all next week.